Every good and perfect gift comes down from you. Every good and perfect gift comes down. Everything we ever needed we found in you. Every good and perfect gift comes down. You're the God who's more than enough. Like you give away your love, like you give us everything. Oh, you give us everything, everything we need. Every good and perfect gift comes down from you. Every good and perfect gift comes down. Everything we ever needed we found in you. Every good and perfect gift comes down. You're the God who does not change. No, your goodness stays the same. Now your mercy's all we know. Oh, Jesus follows us everywhere, everywhere we go. Oh, and when evil tempts us, we will never say we are tempted by you. Oh, and when things seem hopeless, we will never say there is nothing you can do. 'Cause your word is true. Every good and perfect gift comes down from you. Every good and perfect gift comes down. Everything we ever needed we found. Oh, we found in you. Every good and perfect gift comes down. Well, hey, today is a great weekend at Terra Nova. Welcome this section, by the way. We started just with this section, so it's nice to see the room fill in. We started this great series a few weeks ago, and we're winding it down today. And it's been all about the miracle-working power of God and how that doesn't change. It hasn't changed, that the same God, the same Jesus that worked miracles in his earthly ministry is still working miracles in his ministry today. And he's using us sometimes to do that. And so this has been a great series. And at the top of it, we started to learn this new song that simply reminds us that the same God that did all of those miracles still does miracles today. So let's sing this together. And if there's a miracle that you need today, if there's something that you've been asking God for, this is the right environment for God to move in our midst. as we sing and we worship him. So let's do that. No wonder they call you the Ancient of Days, Alpha, Omega, forever the same. Lifter of burdens, breaker of chains, Jesus Messiah, you never change. You're still miracle working, you're still building our faith, you're still giving us reasons to give you all our praise. You're still moving in power, you're still pouring out love, you're still fighting our battles just like you've always done. I've heard them call you the name above names, King of all kings, forever you reign, the healer of sickness, giver of grace, Jesus Messiah, you never change. Hey. You're still miracle working, you're still building our faith, you're still giving us reasons to give you all our praise. You're still moving in power, you're still pouring out love, you're still fighting our battles just like you've always done. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, forever, you stay the same. You stay the same. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, forever, you never change. You never change. You're still miracle working, you're still building our faith, you're still giving us reasons to give you all our praise. You're still moving in power, you're still pouring out love, you're still fighting our battles just like you've always done. You're still miracle working, you're still building our faith, you're still giving us reasons to give you all our praise. You're still moving in power, you're still pouring out love, you're still fighting our battles just like you've always done. Just like you've always done. Just like you've always done. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, forever, you stay the same. You stay the same. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, forever, you never change. You never change. God, not only do we believe that you never change and you still do miracles, but God, we believe that you do miracles for people like us. That there's no amount of good that we can do to earn your love or to earn your favor. Your favor is poured out on all of us, God. We thank you so much. Because on our own, we could never, ever, ever be good enough. So we just let all of that go. And we trust in you and in you alone, God, for every good thing that we need.
All throughout my history, your faithfulness has walked beside me. The winter storms made way for spring. In every season, from where I'm standing, I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life, all over my life. I see your promises in fulfillment all over my life, all over my life. Help me remember when I'm weak. The fear may come, the fear will leave. You lead my heart to victory. You are my strength, and you always will be. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life, all over my life. I see your promises in fulfillment all over my life, all over my life. See the cross, see the cross, the empty grave, the evidence is endless. All my sin rolled away, 'cause of you, oh Jesus. See the cross, the empty grave, the evidence is endless. All my sin rolled away, because of you, oh Jesus. Oh, I see the evidence of your goodness. Come on, sing it out. All over my life, all over my life. I see your promises in fulfillment all over my life, all over my life. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life, all over my life. I see your promises in fulfillment all over my life, all over my life. So why should I fear? The evidence is here. So why should I fear? The evidence is here.
When we talk about evidence, evidence is one of those things that in order to see evidence, you actually have to be looking for it, right? You can't go, oh yeah, I saw that, but I was focused on something else. And I think it's so easy for me, and maybe you relate to this, That sometimes I get fixated or focused on things that I feel overwhelmed by, I feel anxious about, I feel overcome by. And there's a lot of that in life, right? And so maybe today as you come in, you go, that's a great concept, but I'm very focused on all of the things that are not the way that they should be in this world or in my life, the way that I hope that they would be. And that's a really common thing for us, right? And so we're focused rather on our anxieties or our concerns or on our pain or the grief that we feel over something that is not the way we hoped it would go. And yet in the midst of that, one of the opportunities that we have is to not pretend those things don't exist, but to change what we're looking at. And so as we gather, we hold those two things in tension, what we're feeling, what we're facing, but also who God is, which is why it's really important for us in the midst of those concerns and the pain that we feel to look back on who God is, on the ways that he's provided, on the times in life where we felt like, I don't know how I get through this. I don't know how there is an answer to this. I don't know the solution or the opportunity. And we realize God made a way. God made a way. And so in the midst of that today, I want to give you an opportunity to take some time, and maybe right now you take a deep breath and you close your eyes, and on your own you talk to God right now about the things that you go, you know what, I'm holding this, and it is a concern, or it is pain, it's a frustration, it's a wound, it's anxiety over something, and you tell God what that is. In your own way, you bring that, you're honest about what you're facing, and you let him know, here's what it is, here's what I'm holding, here's how I'm feeling about that. And then at the same time, maybe you choose to, and even you, in a way, you're defiant. You're feeling all these emotions, but there's this defiance of saying, and God, still, I want to remind myself that you have provided, that you have been faithful, that you have been the God I can trust in. And maybe right now you try to recall a time where you didn't know how things would end. You didn't have a solution on your own, but then you look back on this season of life and you go, you know what? God provided then. God provided the opportunity that I had been praying for. God provided the people that I needed around me. God provided the strength to walk through that. And so remind yourself right now of a time where you said, I'm not able to get myself through this, but God did. So Heavenly Father, as we come today, we come and we walk together with the things that we face. And we face joy. We also face pain. We face opportunities to be so grateful. And then we also face realities where we're full of grief. But we choose to turn to you. We choose to turn to the God who has provided, who has not left us, the God through every circumstance is near to us, and we choose to cling to you. We place our hope and our trust in you and not in ourselves and not in other people. And today I pray that you would strengthen us individually, you would strengthen us as a community, you would remind us of your goodness, and you would help us to have eyes that are wide open to the evidence of what you're doing around us and through us. And we ask this with hope, and we pray in Jesus' name, amen. Well, good morning, everybody. It is so good to be together today. My name is Scott, and I want to welcome you. Before you take a seat, I want to kick out a question, as we often do, give you a chance to interact with some people around you. And the question for today is, I want you to think back, when was the last time you had a first day at a new job? Maybe it was a long time ago, maybe it was recent, maybe you're hoping it comes soon, but I'd love to have you have a moment, turn to a couple people around you, and ask that question. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So good to have all of us together today. A little drizzly Sunday morning, but it is great to be here together this morning. Love kicking out that question. You got some responses. Maybe you're thinking back a while. Last time you started a new job. I'm thinking about, for me, it was about 16 plus years ago. Different answers here. Hey, this morning I want to do something. I want to introduce you to somebody who just had a first day at a new job. This is Josh Harrison. Josh just joined our staff team. First day Friday, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Friday, so maybe more recent than you. Maybe, I don't know what yesterday was like for you. But man, we are so glad to have Josh and Josh's family joining the Terra Nova community. Last couple months, we spent a lot of time connecting, sharing hearts and all that. And man, I couldn't be more excited just for what God has in store and what is to come. You're going to be seeing Josh around this community doing a number of different things. One of the things you're going to see him doing is up here teaching. And so that's a big part of his role. I'm excited for that. But man, we are just so pumped to have Josh and his family. So again, let's give a Terra Nova welcome. Put our hands together. Say hey to Josh this morning.
Thanks so much, everybody. It's so great to be with you. Honestly, this moment is pretty surreal for me, and I imagine for my family as well. I want to just introduce you to some of my family. My wife, Heather, is over here. You guys, you have to at least stand up. You got to at least stand up. Next to her is my mom, Eileen.
Yeah.
And our oldest daughter, Bouze. We have another daughter, Marta, who's in Georgia. She'll be out there until kind of beginning of June. She'll be coming back here, so you'll meet her. And then our son, Elijah, is in the 5th and 6th grade room right now, so maybe see him running around. But we are thrilled to be here. Like I said, very surreal for us. I was listening to that song. It says, I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life. And I just want you to know that today, as I sing that song, you all are the evidence of God's goodness in our life. You all are the answer to prayer, many, many years of prayer. And we couldn't be more thrilled to join this community. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I heard about Terra Nova. One of the words that everybody uses is hospitality and community, and I can tell you firsthand that it's true. You have been so hospitable and welcoming to us, and we can't wait to get to know you all more. So thanks so much for having us.
Love it. Let's give Josh one more round of applause. Looking forward to that. Josh used the word hospitality. One of the things a lot of people said is like, this community loves food. There's food all over the place. Which is true. We've got food next week. I'll tell you about that. Again, welcome to Terra Nova. My name is Scott, and so glad to have you here with us today. If you're newer to Terra Nova, so is Josh. What a great day to be here as we're going to wind down a series that we've been in the last few weeks. But as you came in, if you got a program, pull this guy out. Plenty of things that we've got in here, stuff that is coming up, including we have got a Terra Nova Tours that is coming up shortly. Great opportunity to hear more about who we are as a church and really what makes us tick. But as you got that program in hand, love to guide you to the very back of it. We've got this section right here that we call the Connect Card. And around Terra Nova, we invite everyone to fill out a Connect Card every week that they're with us. And so you can find that guy, fold it over, tear it off, and fill it out. And when I say that, you can share as much information on this Connect Card as you'd like. If you want to just throw your name down, that is great. If there's anything that you're going through right now where you got questions you'd like to talk with somebody about, please let us know that. Ways that we can pray for you and support you. Or if you go, you know what, hey, I want more information about some specific things, you can check those boxes. And again, if you're newer to Terra Nova, man, first, thank you so much for being a guest with us. I hope you have a wonderful experience. And we would love the opportunity just to thank you and follow up with you. And so you can start filling out that Connect card right now, and we'll grab it from you towards the end of our gathering today. And as I mentioned food, hey, next Sunday is Mother's Day, and we're going to spend that Sunday having a great time just celebrating and honoring moms. And one of the ways that we're going to be doing it is the breakfast that we've got our barbecue team cooking before both of our services. Excited for that. You're like, yeah, more food. So there's going to be a great breakfast. Moms eat free for that. We will have that before the services. We got cold brew, great photo op. And we're going to be kicking off a brand new series next week as well. And so great weekend to be together next week at Terra Nova. But something else that is right around the corner and coming up really quickly is this Kids Feeding Kids event that you're going to see on the flyer in your program. Kids Feeding Kids is a little bit more than a week and a half away. It is Friday, May 15th. And here's really what that event is going to look like. We're going to come out, we're going to be in our parking lot from 5:30 to 8:30. We will be packaging 80,000 meals that will be shipped to some villages in the Philippines where children who are going to be receiving these meals. And so it is an incredible cause, something to get behind. And as we come out, we go, this is an event for all ages. We've got kind of an assembly line going. We've got kids working with their grandparents and everybody in between. We're going to be packaging these meals, and it is so fun seeing it all happen. We've got pizza that'll happen beforehand, and we're just diving in, and it is one of these reminders of really the impact that we can make when we do something together. The fun that we have, the way that we would say, you know what, I wasn't really going to do that on my own, But together, man, like that is a blast, and we feel like we did something really significant. And that is what it means to follow Jesus, to be a part of a cause that we'd say, man, this is worth giving to, and it fills me with joy. And so a great opportunity to come out. We're going to do it together. We invite all of our friends, any groups you got from work, or if there are people in your life that you go, hey, I got my kids' baseball team, invite them out, neighbors, friends, family, all of that. We are going to be raising $25,000 to purchase these meals. And so we're about halfway through that goal. And so again, to dive on in and to be generous with this, you can scan this QR code or stop by the table in the lobby, give to it, sign up, invite people. But again, that is coming up just about a week and a half away on Friday, May 15th. But again, thanks for being with us today. We're going to have a great time as we wrap up our series, When Pigs Fly. But thanks so much for joining us, everybody.
Our world can be a desolate and draining place. It can steal our hope and leave us running on empty. But then there are those people who live in the same world, yet they're hopeful. They have what seems to be an unshakable confidence in God, in spite of what they've seen, in spite of what they've experienced, in spite of what's happening around them. They don't have amazing beliefs. They have amazing faith. So where does that come from? And how do we get it? How do we rediscover and refuel our faith in a world that's running on empty?
All right, that's our new series beginning next weekend. I'm really excited about it. Again, it's going to be Mother's Day. Have this killer breakfast before both services, and it's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be sunny and wonderful outside. And so it's a great weekend to invite some people, like bring some people with you, some friends, some family members, some moms, some neighbors, some coworkers, some enemies. I don't know, bring them all. And I'm excited for this series. It kind of builds a little bit on the one that we've been in. And I'm really excited because I'm going to be team teaching it with Josh, who you just met. And we've been planning it for a little bit. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. And I hope you'll come back. I think you'll get a lot out of it. Now, changing topics. Fun fact, and kind of a cool fact as we sit here, we are all traveling at 67,000 miles an hour through space, and there's hardly even a breeze outside, in an orbit around the sun. And the precise nature of that orbit, our distance from our sun, the kind of sun that we have, the kind of star that it is, the existence and proximity of our moon that keeps our Earth's axis tilted at 23.5 degrees, all keeps our Earth in a kind of zone, if you will, that's called the Goldilocks zone, or AKA the habitable zone. This narrow region, the Goldilocks zone, is a narrow region around a star where the temperatures are just right. Not too hot and not too cold, so that liquid water can exist, and therefore life as we know it can exist. Any closer, like Venus, and all the water evaporates. Any further, like Mars, and everything freezes. But we are in this Goldilocks zone. And in fact, it's not just our planet and our sun. It turns out the whole position of our solar system, our entire solar system within the Milky Way galaxy, is in what's sometimes called the galactic Goldilocks zone, that it is in this precise position in the entire galaxy where life can actually exist. Now, today, I want to talk about another zone that sets the table for things to happen that don't usually happen. More on that in just a moment. Today is the series finale, as Scott just said, of our series When Pigs Fly. And it's been a series about miracles. And I hope you've gotten a lot out of it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have had a lot of people talking to me about it. And on the one hand, if you would call yourself a person of faith or a follower of Jesus, but you are at times unsure about prayer, and that's probably a lot of us. You struggle with prayer, about what to ask God for and how to pray, especially about over things that you've prayed for, miracles, if you will, that you've hoped and prayed for that haven't happened, and that has discouraged you in the way you pray. This series has been for you, and I hope you have found this series has challenged or deepened, and especially has energized your faith and your ability to lean into God and trust Him and to pray boldly. And at the same time, if you've struggled with faith, and struggle with the whole idea of believing in God. And part of the reason is the supernatural, the miraculous, because it just seems unscientific for you. Like this series has been for you too. And if that's you, we've been saying throughout this series, if you're skeptical about miracles, your skepticism is understandable because miracles, as we've been defining it, miracles aren't just something unusual. A miracle, as we've been defining it, is a divine intervention into or an interruption of the ordinary course of nature or the ordinary, the observable, predictable course of nature or the laws of nature that produces a purposeful, it's not accidental, it's not lucky or a fluke, it's a purposeful but unusual event that would not and could not have occurred otherwise. And some, following the arguments of, I mentioned him a couple weeks ago, the 18th century Scottish Enlightenment philosopher who was incredibly influential, David Hume, following his argument, some have said, that's impossible. That's impossible because the laws of nature cannot be violated. That's what Hume argued. And yet, the actual occurrence of miracles seems undeniable. And during this series, and especially in week 2, and if you missed week 2, you've got to go back and catch week 2 of the series. It's really, I think, one of the most pivotal weeks of the entire series. We told just a few of what are thousands and thousands of credible, verifiable, often medically documented cases of miracles, of blind people documented, blind people seeing, deaf hearing, disabled people walking, terminal diseases completely cured, and even the dead being brought back to life, leading to what I think is just the intellectually honest conclusion that God can and does still do that. He can and does still perform miracles. But the real question that many of us have isn't theoretical at all. It's a practical question, and it's simply this: how do I get me one? Like, I don't know if they exist, maybe they exist. How do I get one? How do I get one for me, or maybe for many of us, for somebody I love, for somebody I'm deeply concerned for, somebody who's really close to me? How do I get one? Which we've been saying throughout this series is a entirely legit question. That's a legitimate question because we can be certain, seriously, that God can and does still perform miracles, and therefore we can pray boldly. We can pray boldly for breakthroughs. We can pray boldly for God to do what only He can do while we do what we can do. And in fact, during this series, I've been praying for a couple of miracles for people close to me. Some of you have been praying for miracles as well. But as we said in week 3 of the series, there is no formula. There's no formula, regardless of what some people say or things you see on TikTok and YouTube and so forth. There's no formula, whatever people are trying to sell you, a course in miracles and so forth. There's no magic. There are no magic words. There is no secret code. There is no, if you do these things, God will do that. God will show up in this way. If you speak it this way, if you say these things, there's no formula, including faith. Faith is not a string that pulls the puppet hand of God. It is not a formula to get God to do what you're asking Him to do. And as we said throughout this series, in this fallen world, on this fallen world, until the restoration of all things, when all of our prayers and longings will be fully and finally satisfied, until then, the ordinary course of nature, which includes disease and decay and death and human dysfunction and the consequences of us imposing our wills upon ourselves and each other and our world, that course will continue to be the ordinary course of nature, and yet God does intervene. Intervenes at times to further His purposes, which are often not so obvious to us, but we don't create it. And we cannot control or predict or manipulate how and when God will do that. There is no formula, but there is a posture. There is a posture that puts us in a position, in a zone, if you will, not that guarantees God to act, certainly not that manipulates Him or controls Him or obligates Him into acting. In fact, it's entirely the other way around. It's the posture of obedience. The posture of surrender and obedience to our Heavenly Father, not my will but yours be done, not my will but yours be done, that says, I will do what God is telling me to do. I will do what God asks me to do, what He leads me to do, what I can do as I look to Him and trust Him and ask Him to do what only he can do. And that's a posture. That's a posture that aligns us with God's purposes in the world, what he's up to in a moment or in a relationship or in a season of our lives. It aligns us with God's purposes and puts us in a position for God to do the unusual with us and through us, to partner with us to accomplish what he's attempting to do. And listen, we have no idea what hangs in the balance of our decision to do that. We have no idea what hangs in the balance of our obedience and our all-in, game-on faithfulness to God in every area of our lives and in any given moment with any given decision. We have no idea what or who is hanging in the balance in terms of not just first-order effects, but second and third-order effects. And here's what's interesting. We think we do. We think we know exactly, we think we can see outcomes. We're so confident that we can see down that road and that'll never happen. And that's not this, if I do this, these things will turn out, but that won't turn out that way. We think we can see clearly what will make a difference and what won't make a difference, what will help or not help, and the things that we're concerned about, even when we repeatedly prove to ourselves that we didn't see it that clearly. And all of us have ended up at times in our lives, well, I didn't see that coming. I didn't think that was going to turn out that way. How did we end up here? I don't understand how we ended up in this position as we prove to ourselves again and again that we do not see outcomes very clearly. We have no idea what or who hangs in the balance of our obedience and faithfulness to God, including the outcome that you are so earnestly praying for in your life. Now, there's a story that's found in a document in the Hebrew Scriptures, and the Hebrew Scriptures eventually became called the Old Testament by Christians. That was many years later. This document is known as Kings. In our Bibles, it's separated into 1st and 2nd Kings, but in the Hebrew Scriptures, it's just Kings. And in the Hebrew Scriptures, the Kings document is what's called a prophetic book. It's part of the Nevi'im, the prophets, because of the way it's written to speak to and challenge God's people. And this particular story takes place 800 years before Jesus, 800 years before Christ, in the northern kingdom of Israel. And the story opens on the commander of the armies of a kingdom, an enemy kingdom, by the way, an enemy kingdom just to the north of them, named Aram, or modern-day Syria, and this commander's name is Naaman. Naaman is the commander of the army of the king of Aram. The king of Aram's name is Ben-Hadad, and Aram, Ben-Hadad's kingdom, has been at war with the northern kingdom of Israel for 150 years. This is a long-running gun battle, if you will, but currently they're experiencing some kind of ceasefire or truce. And then we're told about Naaman. He was a great man in the sight of his master, King Ben-Hadad. He's powerful in his nation. He's feared. Everybody knows him. He's highly regarded because through him, the Lord. Now, when you see this word Lord in all capitals in the Hebrew Scriptures in the Old Testament, it is always a translation, or more precisely, not a translation. In fact, it's intentionally not a translation of the proper name of Israel's God, whom they believed was the one true God of all the nations, Yahweh. And through him, Yahweh, the one true God, has actually been giving victory to Aram. And Naaman, he's great, he's highly regarded, he's a valiant soldier, but Naaman has a serious problem. Naaman has leprosy. Uh-oh. Now that term right there, leprosy, it's a term that's used to cover a multitude of skin diseases, including Hansen's disease, which is what is currently called leprosy today. And within this range of skin diseases, it was sometimes life-threatening, but it always left people as social outcasts because leprosy was considered highly contagious and deadly, and so people were ostracized because everybody's afraid of you. No one wants to be near you. No one wants to be in the same room with you because they might get it. And Naaman the great, Naaman the mighty, Naaman the valiant had leprosy. And now the storyteller is going to take us on a flashback to something that happened earlier in the story. Earlier, bands of raiders from Aram had gone out, and this type of thing of like border skirmishes and pillaging of border villages and the taking of people as slaves was just a everyday sad reality of life in the ancient world. And these raiders from Aram had gone out and taken captive this young girl from one of the Israel villages across the border. And now she served Naaman's wife. So consequently, Naaman's wife has a slave girl who had been kidnapped from Israel. And she says to her mistress, she says, if only my master would see the prophet who lives in Samaria, which is another word for northern Israel, and he would cure him of his leprosy. But of course, he, the prophet, can't cure anybody. Only God can actually cure someone. And that's going to be part of the point of the story. And so Naaman's wife tells Naaman this, and then Naaman goes and tells his boss, King Ben-Hadad, what the girl from Israel had said to his wife. And King Ben-Hadad says, well, you need to go do that. Like, you need to go by all means, anything it takes. In fact, I will send you with a letter to the king of Israel, King Joram, and pull some like back channel diplomatic strings on your behalf. And so Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, which is hundreds of pounds of silver. 6,000 shekels of gold, which is about 150 pounds of gold. And oh yeah, by the way, 10 sets of clothing. And we've said often, like, clothing was so expensive in the ancient world. Most people only owned one or maybe two sets of clothing. 10 is very extravagant. But I just love it. It's like all of this, like gold and silver. And oh, by the way, 10 lovely outfits for you. Like, imagine yourself sunning in the Mediterranean in this ensemble right here. And so he's got the gold and the silver and the outfits. Oh, and by the way, because miracles are expensive, he has this letter that he's taken with him to the king of Israel that read, with this letter, I'm sending to you my servant Naaman so that you may cure him of his leprosy. So it's like clearly maybe something has gotten lost in translation between the girl and the wife, and like something's gotten lost here a little bit. But possibly Ben-Hadad is just thinking like a king, because in the ancient world, here's how it worked. Everything in your land, if you're the king, everything in your land belongs to you. All of the land belongs to you. All of the people in your land belong to you. They are under your power and your control. And if there is a sorcerer or a magic man or a healer or a prophet in your land, he's yours. Like, you control that guy. And so you, King Joram, you can fix this. Maybe that's what he's thinking. But King Joram of Israel, he reads this letter. And he takes it literally. As soon as the king reads this letter, he tore his robes, which is a sign of just utter despair. Like, oh no, he tears his robes, so now he's going to need one of those outfits. He tore his robes, and because think about it, here's your enemy, right? Here's your enemy sending the commander of armies that you've done battle with just recently, that you've been at war with, sending him with this letter right here. And Joram says, I'm like, am I God? Is this man crazy? Am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? Why does this man send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? So there's kind of a comedy of miscommunication happening throughout this story. But then it occurs to him, like, he's trying to pick a fight with us. He's trying to break our treaty, to break our ceasefire. He's going to set me up. But as clueless as Joram and maybe Ben-Hadad come off in this story, his response actually sets up part of the subplot of the story, because he is actually right. It is truly only God. Only God who intervenes at his discretion, not ours. And so Joram is freaking out, right? Meanwhile, someone who overhears this thing happening slips out and runs to Elisha, the prophet, who's described as the man of God. He's the one who belongs to God, who does what God says, not the other way around. And he runs to Elisha and tells him what's up. And Elisha sends the messenger back saying, King Joram, why are you despairing? Why are you tearing your robes? Why are you freaking out? Send the man to me. And so Naaman, with his whole entourage, and by the way, he has an army, because he is carting around on carriages hundreds and hundreds of pounds of silver and gold. He has picked his best and brightest and closest troops. They're marching with him. There's horses and there's chariots and there's wagons and the outfits. And they all head out of the city of Samaria to the hill country where Elisha lives, and they stop at the door of Elisha's house. And you can just picture the scene, because here's Naaman, and he's like got his full army there and all of his regalia, and it's clear what he expects. Naaman expects Elisha to come out, and Elisha's going to do the prophet thing. Elisha's going to come out, and he's going to like bow and scrape and show deference and so forth to Naaman, and then he's going to do the sorcerer deal where maybe he like the magic man show. He's going to dance around a little bit, and he's going to wave some magical objects around in the air, and he's going to do some chanting and some incantations. He's going to name the names of the spirits and the gods that he can control and get them, because that's the way magic works, and he is going to get them to heal Naaman. He's going to do something. In other words, he's going to do something to control and manipulate the powers and the gods. That's what prophets do. That's what prophets do. They are the ones who have figured out how to harness the power to do the things that they want to do. But this is so key, and it's so good. Elisha doesn't even come out of the house. Doesn't even come out of the house. He sends his messenger out. And so here's Naaman outside with his army, and he's got his full regalia. And there's a messenger who just kind of slips out the front door, and he says, go wash yourself. Sends them away. Just sends them, go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. And then apparently he just slips back inside the house. It's like, what? What? That's it? Like, you're not even going to come out and tell me yourself, first of all, and that's it? Like, really? Like, go wash? That is not going to make any difference at all. That's exactly what Naaman's thinking. In fact, Naaman, here's what the writer says. Naaman went away angry, and he thought, well, he would surely come out and see me himself. Like, he doesn't even have the decency to come out and tell me this. I thought he was going to come out and call on the name. See, that's incantation language, to name his God Yahweh, and then wave his hands around and do the magic man thing. And I thought he was going to cure me of my leprosy. But go wash in the Jordan River, that puddle. And of course, the Jordan River actually holds a lot of significance in Israel's story. The Hebrew Scriptures were written as this long narrative where there are plots within plots within plots. And in fact, even in this story, there are plots and subplots that are within longer plots, even within the document of Kings, and on and on. And the writers of these stories expect their readers to be able to notice and to meditate on what we might call Easter eggs in modern video gaming language. Like, there are these little things that are dropped in the story that mean something to people who know the lore, and they're going to see that and they're going to go, oh, that's super cool. I get what's going on there. And this is one of those moments in the story. The Jordan River was this place where God's people had entered the land, had entered the promised land in a risky and fact, it was really a crazy act of obedience where God asks them to do something before he shows up and acts, and they do so, and they enter the promised land, which, by the way, is why hundreds of years later, John the Baptist is taking people back to the Jordan River to baptize them and cross through that river all over again to become God's people. And so this river and this act of obedience, it meant a lot to people who knew that story, but that river and that act of obedience, following Elisha's instruction, it means nothing to Naaman. This means nothing to him. In fact, it's totally beneath him. It's beneath his dignity. And here's what he's thinking. Are not the Albana and the Pharpar rivers of Damascus, are not the rivers back home better than all of the waters of Israel? In a way, he's kind of right, because those two rivers are mountain-fed rivers. They're clean, they're pure, and they're bigger, and they're more impressive. And he's like, aren't they? I got rivers where I'm from. Like, couldn't I have just washed in them and been cleansed? As if it were that simple. This is ridiculous. It makes no sense. We're out of here. And he turned and went off in a rage. And there you are. And there I am. God, You want me to do what? You want me to do what? You want me to break up with her? You want me to apologize? You want me to forgive? You want me to extend grace? You want me to put up with that nonsense and just be a gracious, considerate person? You want me to be the bigger person? You want me to be faithful? You want me to commit to a lifelong union before we play house? You want me to give what? How much? You want me to trust you with what? You want me to walk away from that opportunity. Okay, yeah, there's some sketchy pieces of it, but you want me to walk away from that opportunity so that I can remain faithful here or so that I can be just faithful to you. You want me to treat my spouse how? Have you met my spouse? You want me to raise my kids how? Do you know how the world has changed since you were around Jesus? It is not the same thing. People are busy. Nobody raises their kids with those values or in that way. And on we go. And maybe that's where you're at right now. Maybe right now you're wrestling with something you feel God is telling you to do, and it doesn't make any immediate sense. That will not make a difference. It won't make a difference long run. People will not understand. It's going to cost you something, maybe beginning with ego or pride or standing. And maybe that's where you are. And so before we go any further, I just want to ask you, what are you wrestling with? What are you wrestling with? What do you think God might be wanting you to do? What do you think God might be telling you to do? Where do you think God might be calling you to step up? What might God be calling you or asking you to change? And you just find yourself resisting and I don't know. Or maybe you've been pushing back against that voice for so long, you're not wrestling anymore. You were wrestling a while ago, but you're not wrestling anymore because the voice has gone quiet. In which case, what was that? What was that you used to wrestle with, that you used to struggle with, and you resisted it for so long that it's just kind of gone dark for you? And so often I see people desperately wanting God to show up in some area of their life, desperately wanting something from God, but they are not willing to trust God with the rest of their life. It's like, God, I want you to show up. I'm so desperate. Would you please show up in this area of my life? And would you really pretty please not show up in this area? Like, I really would rather you didn't show up over here, but I need you to do something for me right here. And sometimes I see people not even obeying God in that area of their life where they want him to show up. Like, I want you to do a miracle in this relationship, but I am not about to behave in this relationship the way you're calling me to behave in this relationship until the miracle happens. And okay, if you change them completely, and I don't even see that as possible, but sure, yeah, I would step it up. Like, I would be the person you're calling me to be. God, I need a miracle in my finances. We need a miracle in our finances. But I'm not about to do the things, behave the way in my finances that you call me to behave. I mean, I can't at this point in my life. I need a miracle in my family. I need a miracle in my marriage. But I am not about to be the kind of spouse you call me to be. Well, unless you change my spouse. It's like, God, you are going to have to move first. And then I will obey you. And Naaman's reaction might be a lot like your reaction. He's like, no way. There's no way. It won't make a difference. That doesn't change anything. I've tried that before. I've bathed in rivers before. Like, I don't see how that will help or change a thing. But a couple of people who are close enough to Naaman to risk challenging him, and it is a risk to challenge a man like Naaman, who have this point of view, who has some wisdom, has some perspective that Naaman in this moment does not have because he's worked himself up into a lather. Two of his servants, they come to him and they say, my father, which is just the deference that you want to speak to someone with like Naaman with. My father, if the prophet had asked you to do some great thing, like if the prophet had asked you to do some great and noble and daring and like dangerous quest or mission or challenge, like, okay, you must climb the sacred mountain and slay the twin lions who prey on the flocks. If he had asked you to do something great and noble, you would have done that. Wouldn't you? How much more? How much more when he tells you, wash and be cleansed? Why wouldn't you do that? And somehow this proud man is just struck. And there's this change of heart. And so the whole entourage mounts up, the armies and begin to march east until they get to the Jordan River, and he went down and he dipped or immersed himself in the Jordan 7 times as the man of God had told him. In other words, he does exactly what he was told. He doesn't play with it. He does exactly what he was told 7 times. And I imagine the scene because everybody's watching him. I mean, his ego is on the line, his position's on the line. Everybody's watching as he goes down into this dirty river compared to what and he goes under the water 1 time. Nothing's changed. A 2nd time, a 3rd time, 5th, 6th time he goes under the water. And the 7th time he comes out of the water and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Now, we don't know how old Naaman was. Did he have crow's feet? Do his wrinkles immediately disappear? And some of you are like, well, I want to give me some. I'll give some gold and silver forget Botox, honey. We're going to the Jordan River. So, like that, are you kidding me? Now, here's a question. Did Naaman have a whole lot of faith in this moment? I don't think so. He's there. He has just enough faith to do what he was told to do. That's how much faith he has. And he's there in the water, I'm certain, thinking, I don't get it. I don't get it. Did he even know who Yahweh is? No. And yet God, in his mercy, meets Naaman right there at his point of willingness, at his little bit of faith, enough faith to bring it to the table. And listen, Naaman is on nobody's top 10 or even top 1,000 list of people to meet God and have some kind of conversion event to become a follower of God. And by the way, I wasn't on anybody's top 10 list or top 100 list, and maybe you weren't either. And though in fact, the storyteller has already informed us that Yahweh was a part of his story before he even knew it. And so Naaman comes out of the water and he's cleansed and he's humbled and he's gobsmacked. He's just like stupefied. He's standing in the water thinking, oh my God, literally. And immediately the entire group, all of the attendants, the soldiers and everybody, the wagons, they all head back west to the man of God. And now Elisha comes out. And Naaman stands before Elisha and says, you, sir, you have incredible powers. Like the way that you were able to do that. How did you do that? No, it's not what he says. In fact, this is part of the point of the story. This is why Elisha didn't come out in the first place. It's why he didn't accompany him to the river, because Naaman thought that Elisha was, as the girl in Aram had thought, Elisha was the one who would cure him. Elisha was the magic man, the one with the power who controlled the gods, had them on his string, and now he knows Elisha wasn't the one with the power at all. It was God. And only God. And here's what Naaman actually said, and this is remarkable. He says, now I know there is no God in all the world. Now I know there is no God in all the world except in Israel. Like your God isn't just a better God or a good God. He's the only true God. Not, hey, that was really impressive. I'm grateful. I am going to add, what's the name of your God again? I'm going to add your God to my list of gods, and I'm going to offer sacrifices and show my gratitude and devotion to your God in addition to all my gods. It's like, your God's it. My God did not show up. Your God's the only true God. And now we see that the point of the story wasn't the healing at all. It wasn't the miracle or the leprosy. It was bigger than that. It was bigger than that, and that's the point of your story and my story as well. And the point was eye-opening, faith-building, life trajectory altering revelation that meets up with our willingness and our obedience, and we end up seeing God in a whole new way, and our life becomes more aligned with who he is and what he's up to in the world, not the other way around. And Naaman isn't just cleansed. Naaman is changed. Naaman's changed, and he's so grateful. Now you can just feel the humility dripping from this once arrogant, proud man. He's had such a change of heart, and he says, here's what he actually says. He says, I know your God is the only true God in the world, so please, 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 would you accept a gift from your servant? And Elisha refuses. He refuses because Elisha wants Naaman to be clear. He didn't do anything. It was only God. And so the prophet answered, as surely as Yahweh lives, as surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, not the other way around, I serve him, he does not serve me, I will not accept a thing. Even though Naaman urged him, he refused. And then, this is so cool. Naaman says, well, if you won't take my gift, let me take something from you. Here's what Naaman says. Well, if you will not, please let me, your servant, be given as much earth. Can I take some of your dirt? Like if you won't take my gold and silver, can I have some of your dirt? Can I get your dirt as much as a pair of mules can carry, which is a lot of dirt? For your servant will never again make burnt offerings and sacrifices to any other god but Yahweh. Can I just take enough dirt from Yahweh's land? And part of the idea here is that gods were somewhat territorial. They had rule or sway over certain regions or certain lands. And so he wants to worship Yahweh on Yahweh's dirt. He wants it as a sign of like reverence and respect, like the idea of sacred space and holy ground, and maybe for him as an ongoing, lifelong reminder that every time he steps onto that dirt to offer sacrifices to Yahweh, that he will remember that moment standing on that dirt many years ago, that God, the one true God, met his life and intersected his life. He wants to build an altar with that dirt because he says, from now on, I will only offer sacrifices to Yahweh. No talk of leprosy, no talk of magic or healing or miracles. Naaman has had a life-changing encounter with the living Lord. And it all hinged on an act of willingness and obedience. Ego-threatening, humbling, humiliating, really. People are watching. It seemed to make absolutely no sense. This doesn't make a difference. An act of willingness and obedience that put him in a place to experience God's grace. It put him in a position or in a zone to experience the mercy and grace of God. And listen, we have no idea. We have no idea what hangs in the balance of our willingness and our obedience and our all-in faithfulness to God at any given moment with any given decision. And again, throughout stories of God showing up in miraculous ways throughout the scriptures, Old Testament and New Testament, it so often involves people acting upon something they know to do, acting upon something they're told to do before God shows up, acting as if they trust that he will. As I was preparing for the series, I was listening to interviews and reading books. I've recommended a couple of those books. They're still in your program or your outline if you're following along, of documented cases. I reached out to my brother who's lived most of my adult life with a Muslim tribe in Africa, and I knew he had seen some things because I'd met one person whose story was an incredible miracle. And he shared a bunch of stories with me as well. And one thing that stood out to me again and again was an act of simple obedience by someone. An act of simple obedience by someone who felt God was telling them to do something, someone who felt like they were being guided to do something, and they just said yes. And often, in a lot of the stories, including some of my brother's stories, like, I didn't have a whole lot of faith. In fact, in one story, it's like, I didn't even have a good attitude. I didn't even want to do it, but I kind of felt like God wanted me to, so I just did it because I felt like God wanted me to do it. And so we told the story in week 2 of Dr. Chauncey Crandall, who's the cardiologist from West Palm Beach. After certifying the death of Jeff Markin in the ER, he was called in to certify this man's death, who had been flatlined for 40 minutes. They had done everything possible to resuscitate him. Cyanosis was now setting in. His limbs and face were turning black. And and Crandall walked in, certified his death, signed his death certificate, and as he was leaving the ER, he felt like God was telling him, go back, and this is specific, go back in and pray that the man would be given a second chance to know who God is. And Markin, in his own confession, was like, that's crazy. I'm not going to do it. I just signed the man's death certificate 10 seconds ago. Like, I'm not going to walk back in there now. How stupid am I going to look? They were sponging his body to prepare him for the morgue. He's turning black. Like, I'm not going to go back in there. And like, so now I'm going to pray for him. And he's like, continue to try to walk out of the ER. And he just felt this overwhelming sense that he had to go back in. And so he turned around and he went back in as the nurse is sponging the body, and he prayed aloud that God would bring Jeff Markin back to life and give him a second chance to know who he is, while the nurse stared at him like he was crazy. And God did. And Jeff Markin came back to life, fully restored, no brain problems at all. And Markin is alive today, and the story is completely medically documented, and all the eyewitnesses have been interviewed to confirm all of the details. And then there's the story of the man, and I told his story as a sub-story of another story, whose abdomen was crushed. He was a diesel mechanic by a truck axle, and his name was Bruce Van Atta. And though he remarkably survived the accident and shouldn't have, there were repeated surgeries, and his small intestine had been so destroyed by the axle that it had been almost completely removed. And so now Bruce Van Atta was starving to death because he couldn't ingest any vitamins or any nutrition through his intestine. And Bruce, though Bruce lived in Wisconsin, Bruce had a friend in New York. Who felt like God wanted him to fly to Wisconsin to pray for him. Not over the phone, not long distance, in person. And so he did. He did. And as his friend prayed for him, Bruce, and I described the scene in much more length during week 2. He was completely healed. And later, the radiologist who had been part of all of the surgeries and part of his medical team for a number of months now, who examined him after this, said his small intestine had more than doubled in length, and the small intestine of an adult cannot grow longer. It can only grow larger. And Bruce Van Atta is alive today. And his story has been completely medically documented. And like, those are amazing stories, right? That's amazing. But one of the things that really stuck out to me with these stories and so many more were these words right here. What if Crandall had just said, no way, I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. I'm not going to do that, and walked out of the ER and just went back to his rounds. And what if the friend from New York had said, that's too much money. Why can't I just pray for him here? God's God everywhere. Why don't I just pray for him here, which he already had been doing? And what if Naaman had said, there's no way I'm baptizing myself in this dirty river one time, let alone 7 times? What difference would that possibly make? We have no idea what hangs in the balance. It's the posture of obedience. The posture of obedience, it's the posture that positions us or aligns us with God's purposes in the world. It's a posture that puts us in a zone, if you will, in a position, not that guarantees God will act or forces him or forces his hand or manipulates or obligates him in any way. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this crazy risk. And then, God, you're going to have to show up and bail me out. It is absolutely the other way around. It does not bring God into alignment with me. It brings me into alignment with him and allows me to partner with him and allows him to partner with me in doing what he wants to do in this world. And I thought to myself, what if they hadn't done that? What if they hadn't done that in all these stories? How would those stories have been different? And I thought, and what about me? What about me? Am I saying yes? Am I saying yes? Am I placing myself always in that position of obedience? And as I was preparing for this series, and I'm very much so preparing for the finale of this series, I started thinking about some of the most important decisions I've ever made in my life, decisions that ended up becoming the best parts of my life, like part of the best parts of my story when often it was my wife and I, said yes to what we felt was just a prompting, something that we should do, or a sense that God wanted us to do something, or this was the right thing to do. And in almost all these cases, it was crazy, it was unusual, it was incredibly expensive, it was risky, it was sacrificial, it wasn't non-lucrative, non-self-benefiting. And by the way, it wasn't like I took this risk and we started this startup and we sold that thing for millions. Like, those are great stories too, and those are great risks. And if that's where you're at, like, go for that. But this is on those kind of risks. They're just completely sacrificial and so forth. And I had no idea no idea what or who hung in the balance of those decisions to say yes to God. And then at the same time, I thought of a number of occasions where I felt a prompting or I had a thought that God might want me to go and do something, and I resisted. And I said, no, that's awkward, that's weird, that's uncomfortable. They're not asking me to do that. I don't know if they want me to do that, and I didn't do it. And I didn't place myself in that position. And do you know what hung in the balance of those decisions not to act? Neither do I. Neither do I. So here's the question. What are you wrestling with? What are you wrestling with? Why not just say yes to your Heavenly Father? Why not say, I'm going all in. I felt these nudges. I've pushed. What did you used to wrestle with that you don't wrestle with anymore because the voice has just gone quiet? Why not go all in and actually follow the culture-defying, life-changing leadership of Jesus in every single area of your life? Let me close this in prayer. And as we do that, I want to invite you, we're closing this series, one more time to say, Heavenly Father, there's this area. There's this place where I would love to see you show up as only you can show up and perform a miracle, to intervene in and even reverse the ordinary course of nature, because I see where that's going. I ask you to show up as I show up and do what you're calling me to do. And on the other hand, maybe as I said that, there's some things you wrestle with, or maybe there's something you used to wrestle with and you don't wrestle with anymore. And maybe now is the day for you to say yes to your Heavenly Father. In fact, maybe for you, today is the day for you to say on a macro level, yes to following Jesus. And you've wrestled with that and you've struggled and you've gone up to the line and just backed away from it and never just fully said, I will follow you, Jesus. I give you my life. And maybe right now is your moment to do just that, to say, I will follow you. My answer is yes. And I can't wait to see what and who hangs in the balance of my decision to do that. In Jesus' name, amen.